I'm looking at my watch and it's not quite the same here. I've got to fix it.
Good morning. Couple of announcements before we actually start. Your cell phone is on, perhaps. Please check, make sure it's off or on vibrate if you're expecting an emergency call in the next 60 minutes. Second, a word on microphone technique. Remember, if you're given the mic to use, hold it almost horizontal to the floor, keep it very close to your mouth, and yes, eat it, as has been commented, and speak clearly. If it's working right, you can hear your voice coming through the loudspeaker system, and then you know you're doing it right. If you're sitting next to someone who's not doing it right, a gentle reminder about how to do it is okay. With that, let's get started. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
One of the things, if you have in the course of the questions, if you have a very simple answer, just a one-word answer, it's okay to speak it out. If you really want to make a comment, use the mic, because this is being recorded and people will not hear you unless you're speaking through a mic.
Okay. Today we're going to focus on two main things. One is O'Brien, who is a fascinating character. I mean, he's a genius on Orwell's part. Wonderful character, very complicated. And the other is Goldstein's book. But before that, I want to ask you, what are the differences, besides sex, of course, between Winston and Julia? How are they different? This is very important. Go ahead, Hava.
Let me have a mic. Oh, where's the second mic, Charlie? I've been thinking a lot about this, actually. And there are a number of important differences, some of which I think may play into stereotypes of women. You know, of course, Winston is older. He is, I realized this even just this morning, he's naturally a writer. So he has a kind of sensitivity to words and language that she lacks. She is interested in surviving the system. She has no memory of the past that bothers her, and she's very focused on the herself and the two of them.
The physical.
The physical. She's very interested in physical satisfaction, pleasure, and she's very anxious to be feminine, although how she knows about these feminine stereotypes is something I'm curious. If she wants to put on makeup, she wants to wear a dress, but it is about herself, and it is a certain kind of important self-expression. But she doesn't quite fit the stereotype of don't bother your silly little head about it, kind of, but she's edges in that direction.
She's a physical person.
I have one.
Yes, sorry.
I'd just like to add very quickly, she's also a contrarian. I think she takes great joy in this. The video captured that.
Well,
that is to say, tricking the police, tricking the surveillance system. So there's a great sense of pleasure that she takes in that, whereas Winston is terrified of that. So they actually are a very good couple, except that I think Winston would like to have a more intellectual conversation with her. She sleeps through the reading of Goldstein, yeah. But I like that character. I think, yeah, she's not terribly stereotyped, just a little.
she seems to be a deliberately unfulfilled character. She fits what one critic, the entire novel fits the model of one critic says most novels fit boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy finds girl. And that's what we see in this novel. However, what's the role of girl? She seems to be the model of indifference, as opposed to Winston, whose mind requires the system to cleanse it. And in a sense, there's a real strong dichotomy between them because he can't arrive at indifference.
Well, you know, in a way, she's physical and he's intellectual, and they're extraordinarily different. I mean, she has no interest in the intellectual side of things at all. You know, she just wants the sex and the love and the coziness of a home, a fake home, and so forth. Whereas he is completely different. It's a very important thing to keep in mind because, of course, when O'Brien comes along, he picks up everything like he's very quick. Now, I want to get into O'Brien and what you think of his character and how he manages to do what he does. How does he control people the way he does? He's a fascinating character. What do you think? How would you characterize him? Is he like anybody you've ever known? Well, notice how Winston has reacted to him from the start. How would you describe that? Winston's reactions to O'Brien from the very beginning. Yes.
It's okay.
We can hear you.
No, we need it for the recording.
He's kind of fascinated by him. There's a look in his eye. There's something about him that is attractive, and he suspects that but he's not sure. She's not sure about him. He waits until O'Brien makes the move to let him know that he wants him to come see him. So O'Brien has the upper hand to begin with. I actually didn't get much of a sense of his personality. I guess the important thing was that he had the material that was going to unlock what Winston wanted.
Well, let's put it this way. How does O'Brien see Winston?
Kind of as a disciple in a way. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there are disciples of many kinds. There are disciples that carry luggage, or what kind of disciple is he?
Maybe a student or student of the revolution, or somebody to be moved into the inner circle.
A fellow intellectual.
Okay, that's a start. He knows instantly that Julia is non-intellectual, but Winston is. Now, from O'Brien's point of view, what good is Winston? Because O'Brien has called him in. Yeah.
I'm not doing my job. I'm sorry.
I think he's a challenge because he's got to wipe this guy's mind out, and this is one of his biggest challenges.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. So he sees in Winston weakness of a sort that he can exploit, right? Well, what else does he see in him? Why has he maneuvered Winston into this position, of wanting to be connected? He's a very, very interesting guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think he sees in Winston somebody who is actually has the potential to be dangerous to the system.
Why?
Because he thinks about the past, because he likes words, because
he's intellectual.
That's right. He's intellectual,
Right.
And he's somebody that can't be allowed to have free range.
Okay. So this is a way of keeping him under control.
Right, and probably eventually destroying him.
But he can be useful, can't he?
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah, how? How could he be useful to O'Brien? You know, O'Brien has cleverly trapped him, but he has to have had something in mind. He has a reason for having trapped. He needs to use Winston in a certain way.
He's trying to get from him other contacts he might have. He thinks he might, since he's an intellectual, maybe he's already talked to other people about his ideas. So he's trying to find out how far his.
Well, he knows intellectuals are dangerous.
Yes, so he's trying to find his network, I guess.
Okay, well that's part of it. It's fascinating to see how Orwell uses O'Brien. O'Brien is a marvelous character. I mean, you get to thinking this guy knows everything. He knows everything, you know. But he gives the impression of that. But it takes a while to get into the heart of it. Okay, so O'Brien maneuvers Winston into coming to see him, and this conversation that they have. Let's look at this. He's very. I mean, think of people today, public people who remind you of O'Brien. Can you think of, you know, this guy is he's a clever political operative. He has a psychological. He sees right through people in some way. Now, okay, why does he gets Winston? He knows Winston is going to come to him because Winston is weak. He's vulnerable. He wears a big V on his chest. He's vulnerable. All right, and so he gets him in, and they have this conversation. Right? Let's look at the conversation they have. It's quite quite interesting.
Tell us what page.
Okay, I'm looking. Let's see. Okay, wait a minute.
148, 149.
I think you're right. Wait a sec. Here we go. Yeah, 148, right. Okay. Chapter 8 starts out, they had done it. They had done it at last. Done what? Going to see O'Brien. Why is that such a big deal in their minds? They haven't even heard O'Brien say anything yet. But they go into it's a wonderful scene that Orwell has set up here. They go into O'Brien's apartment, and what do they see there? Starting at page 148.
Okay, if you want to speak, give it a mic.
It's interesting that Brian didn't look up when Winston walked in the room.
Why is that?
Well, you'd think he wanted him there, and he had thoughts about what he was going to do with him.
He knew he would come.
That's right. He had asked him to come and then acted like nothing.
So O'Brien has somehow psyched out Winston from the start. He knows what he's dealing with. You know, a smart intellectual, vulnerable in some ways, you know, eager to make a difference in some way, and convinced that O'Brien is one of the good guys. You know, why is he so? You know, O'Brien. I mean, Winston's intelligent. Why is he so convinced that O'Brien is one of the good guys? I mean, imagine yourself. You're all intelligent people. Imagine yourself in that position. Why would you think that? Yeah. Go ahead, Colin.
I think O'Brien is very good at acting the part.
Oh, yes.
That is, he's picked out Winston. He knows he needs to neutralize him, and he is trying to make Winston, by his glances, by his pats on the shoulder, or whatever else it is, he's getting Winston to think that he, O'Brien, is not part of the mainstream inner party.
That's right. And he's working so that Winston will end up being a good little dog wagging his tail. That's exactly what he's going to be.
So on the bottom of page 149, Winston's longing for this to be an intellectual companionship, maybe even entree to the inner party.
Yes.
The terror that Winston already felt was suddenly shot through by a streak of ordinary embarrassment. I thought that was great. It seemed to him quite possible that he had simply made a stupid mistake. That's exactly what he's done.
Okay. Now, why does he think he's made a stupid mistake?
Because he so longs for O'Brien to be the intellectual companion, the entree to the inner party, the end of the nightmare of his own entrapment.
Somehow, O'Brien, this is what's fascinating about O'Brien, he somehow has figured out that Winston he's intelligent, he's sensitive, he can be useful in lots of ways, but he's not the word I want. He's basically a follower, and he can work him over, any way. He just has a sense. He's read Winston's mind, and it's fascinating because you get the idea. Here's this dialogue going on between Winston and O'Brien. And O'Brien's sitting back like this, secretly, and he said, "Things are going just the way I want, just the way I want."
Peter, one thing I wanted to add was that I think Winston was so desperate to find somebody.
Yes.
That's, to me, was the motivation. I spent more time thinking about Winston's desire to have a companion intellectually.
Oh, yeah.
Julia was one thing which was really helpful for him because the physical was important, more important than he realized for himself.
Yes.
But the intellectual side, and I don't think he was very discerning at all.
No.
About human relationships.
No, he isn't.
Much more of the intellectual, and this was his blind spot, was who to trust and who not to trust, as we saw even later.
He's finding he's so yearning for this intellectual companionship, and you can see that O'Brien kind of enjoys it. He enjoys talking with an intelligent person, who's on his level. Julia she's physical. She's uninterested, but Winston can be useful because he's so intelligent and he's so vulnerable that he can do anything he wants. Yeah.
Sort of echoes something the late Everett Dirksen said, nothing propinks like propinquity.
Nothing but what?
Nothing propinks like propinquity.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we get this wonderful scene here, page 151. He's got this luxurious apartment, and he's serving wine, and he's got a servant and all that stuff, and then he says, "I think it's fitting that we should begin by drinking a health to our leader, to Emmanuel Goldstein." And Winston, of course, reacts eagerly to that. Brian's sitting here thinking, okay, That's check one that off. He's a Goldstein person, but then Winston is, whatever else he is, vulnerable or not, he's intelligent, he's intellectual, and he says, then there is such a person as Goldstein, and he replies, yes, there is such a person. He's alive. Where, I do not know. And the conspiracy, the organization is real. It is not simply an invention of the thought police. No, it is real. The brotherhood, we call it. All right. So then he's okay. What he's saying is, all right, let's get together and undermine the party. Let's do do this together, and he's demanding loyalty of Winston. And the more they talk, Winston thinks, oh, this is wonderful. He's on my range. He's like me, and then this is wonderful. Page 151. This is wonderful. We're having this conversation. You're prepared to do this, prepared to do that, and then he says, you're prepared, the two of you, to separate and never see one another again? No, broke in Julia. Julia, the physical person, the non-intellectual person, the person that wants to be loved, You did well to tell me, said O'Brien. It is necessary for us to know everything. Uh-oh. And then they go on, and then he says, good, that is settled, on the next page. And there you are, the two of them are trapped. They've given they've addressed their loyalties to the uprising and so forth, and he's got all he wants. So then what does O'Brien do? He sends a servant back from Wind so they can be nice and cozy together. O'Brien is fascinating. He's the most wonderful manipulator. Look at this guy and you think, God, this is a genius of manipulation, the way he's working. And on page 155, Orwell says, more even than of strength, he gave an impression of confidence and of an understanding tinged by irony. Uh-oh. Yeah. O'Brien is a superb actor. He's Academy Award actor. And then they go on to talk about, what they're going to do together, quote unquote. How to take down the brotherhood, how to become clear, clear and so forth. And O'Brien fills up the glasses again, and he says, "What will it be this time? Who are we going to drink to?" And Winston says, "The past, to the past." And what every time Winston opens his mouth, he's being lured more into that trap. It's a master class in manipulation. How he gets to know, in a very short time, O'Brien gets to know everything worth knowing about Winston. And then they start talking about Goldstein's book, which we'll see later. By the way, when you get to Goldstein's book, it's very much like Alexei Navalny's book that I talked about in the first class, the Russian who was murdered by Putin. Very, very similar to that. So the meeting breaks up, and O'Brien says, "We shall meet again if we meet again." And Winston looked up and said, in the place where there is no darkness," he said hesitantly. That's a laugh. And then they're about to leave, and he remembers that oranges and lemons, say the bells of St. Clemens. He thinks of that thing he's been hearing, and O'Brien finishes the last line. You know, you get the impression, and Winston gets the impression. Winston's the intellectual, that O'Brien knows everything. He knows everything. He's infallible. All right, now you get to. We're getting to the point here where we're going to lead up to the book. And on page 163, it starts. The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism by Emanuel Goldstein. Now, Goldstein, remember, is the Trotsky figure. Trotsky to Stalin. You know what happened to Trotsky. And he becomes this becomes the center of the discussion for some time in the book. Now, starts out, and he writes chapter 3, War is Peace, and he's giving a history of what's happened in the world, the splitting up of the world into three great super states and so forth. And what is this really about? What is Goldstein's, we'll look at it in detail, what is Goldstein's book really about?
How to establish a totalitarian state.
Okay.
And maintain it.
And how it's been done, really, basically, right? It's a absolutely detailed history of how to develop a totalitarian state. Now, if you wanted to be a dictator, you personally, you could read this book and get some clues. You think if you had the right contacts, hey, that sounds pretty good. You know, I could be master of the world. Okay, so we get into this book, and let's get a general idea. Give me a general idea of what you make of this book that he's reading.
The part that I really related to was this whole concept of, in order to, for capitalism to exist, you have to have something to do with the excess production, and so war is necessary. But the kind of war they had was no war, but constantly changing alliances, which is, I mean, everything they're saying is just exactly what's been happening. And we're spending so much money on, military that there's
You want to hand that back?
nothing left for the people. And so you keep the stratification that way, and it's so obvious. And we've been talking about it for years and years and years, and nothing changes.
Right.
So it just feels like, he's right. But no matter whether to the left or to the right, it's all the same.
Yeah.
And I just thought, why am I involved with politics at all? I think I'd just go read books and forget about politics because nothing changes.
That's the way a lot of us feel, I think, sometimes. Yes.
I guess one thing I wanted to say is, of course, he calls it oligarchical collectivism, which talks immediately about the title of it. It means the preservation of a wealthy class.
Right.
The other thing I keep wondering is, who wrote this thing? Is it really Emanuel Goldstein? Could it be a forgery by the, if one wants to call it that? I mean, since if there's nothing in it that really shows any rebellion against the prevailing system.
Yeah.
it is the prevailing
It
system.
is a prevailing system.
So that it's not, I mean, you know, Goldstein may still be a fictitious figure, or he may have had very different ideas than this, although Trotsky certainly was a communist. So it pretends to reveal, but it really, I mean, it reveals what he already knows, what Winston already knows, as he says. You know, he understands how, but not why.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to make a comment? Yes.
The book describes the three classes of people, and the people on the bottom don't stand a chance. The middle class may want them to achieve their goals, but then once they've achieved their goals, they're back in the cellar again. And they want to preserve this upper class, but it's not an inherited thing passed down from father to son. It's something that they always have to maintain. So he may be, O'Brien may be looking at Winston as someone to whom they can recruit to kind of keep the upper crust together.
What does this remind you of?
Trump and his alliance with the so-called poor and out people. I'm with you against these immigrants who are taking your jobs and so on.
It's exactly the Trump playbook, isn't it? It's, I mean, it's a brilliant piece of work by Orwell to put it out like this, because he's showing this is how tyrants have always worked, and they always will work, and people fall for it, and it's just it's very, very much when Orwell was writing, of course, it was Stalin's Russia was foremost in mind, and he's thinking of a lot of the images from that, but it's going on right now. It's going on through history. This is, you know, stalemate between warring groups, the manipulation of the poor by the rich. You know, it's and the question is, have the optimistic predictions come true or not? You know, is all this the colonialism and so forth? Let's look at. Let's see. Let's get a good. All right. Well, you keep the masses in poverty, and you know. On page 169. Let's look at that. to return to the agricultural past was not a practical solution. It conflicted with a tendency toward mechanization, which had made quasi-instinctive throughout almost the whole world. And moreover, any country which remained industrially backward was helpless in a military sense, and now to be dominated directly or indirectly by more advanced rivals. Nor was it a satisfactory solution to keep the masses in poverty by restricting output of goods. This happened to a great extent during, and it goes on and on and on. And he talks about war, and he says, next page 170, what is concerned here is not the morale of the masses, whose attitude is unimportant so long as they are kept steadily at work, but the morale of the party itself. Even the humblest party member is expected to be competent, industrious, and even intelligent within narrow limits. But it is also necessary that he should be a credulous and ignorant fanatic whose prevailing moods are fear, hatred, adulation, and orgiastic triumph. In other words, it is necessary that he should have the mentalities appropriate to a state of war. It does not matter whether the war is actually happening. It does not matter whether the war is going well or badly. All it is needed is that state of war should exist. And then he says, it is precisely in the inner party that war hysteria and hatred of the enemy are strongest. In his capacity as an administrator, it is often necessary for a member of the inner party to know that this or that item of war news is untruthful, and that he may often be aware that the entire war is spurious and is either not happening or is being waged for purposes other than the declared ones. But such knowledge is easily neutralized by the technique of doublethink. Does any of this sound familiar? I mean, you know, Orwell is really onto something. This is something that's repeated again and again and again and again, and it's still going on as we are. Yeah.
You taught this book when you were teaching at Germantown,
Friends, yeah.
and that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't during Trump era.
No.
How was the reaction? I mean, we're comparing constantly with Trump and our situation today. How did it?
Well, the reaction was all more historical. It was like going back to the Second World War and the Nazis and the communists and so forth. Yeah. It wasn't. It didn't occur to anybody that it was going to happen here. Back then.
I see.
Big difference.
So it wasn't related directly to their experience.
No, not really. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reflects on a lapse in secondary school education. This book was written in 1947. It was directly aimed at the encroachment of socialism in Eastern Europe. There's a wonderful book by a woman named Ruth Margolis called Life Under a Star, where she and her husband are released from the camps. They walk back to Prague. They both reoccupy their positions in government, which is now a socialist government. Her husband gets arrested in a three-piece suit. 6 months later, she visits him in prison, and he's still in the cell in the same three-piece suit. Her entire book is an essay on how a socialist system can encroach, and this was happening when Orwell was writing this book. And she concludes by saying, socialism is a system that exists to solve problems that arise only under socialism. It's a wonderful book, and more pointed than this because she doesn't have to hide behind fictional methods.
Right.
Life Under a Star.
I kind of want to move on here from the
You didn't teach that at Germantown, Friends.
what?
You were teaching Anglo-Saxon English literature. You didn't go to the East.
Well, maybe, yeah, probably not. Well, anyway, I want to go to the discussion here. Let's to more of Goldstein's book on page 178. He's been, she tells him, she's non-intellectual. She doesn't want to think about intellectual things at all. She says, you read it aloud, that's the best way. Then you can explain it to me as you go. And so Goldstein goes on here, and he says, page 179, the aims of these three groups are entirely irreconcilable. The aim of the high is to remain where they are. The aim of the middle is to change places with the high. The aim of the low, when they have an aim, and it's an abiding characteristic of the low, they're too much crushed by drudgery to be more than intermittently conscious of anything outside their daily lives, is to abolish all distinctions and create a society in which all men shall be equal. So this history, this is history, and what this is about is rewriting of history. Rewriting of history. Now, I want you to think about what's happening in America right now. Right now? Rewriting history. Okay? Give us a good example of what's being rewritten attempted to be rewritten right now.
They've removed the plaques on Washington's, the name of Washington's slaves.
Right. Well, so history, you erase it. It didn't exist. Same thing is happening again. What Orwell is talking about is it is constantly coming back. It's constantly coming back, and let's see. All right. He goes on and on and on with Goldstein's book here. He says, page 186. Think about this. The essence of oligarchical rule is not father to son inheritance, but the persistence of a certain worldview and a certain way of life imposed by the dead upon the living. A ruling group is a ruling group so long as it can nominate its successors. The party is not concerned with perpetuating its blood, but with perpetuating itself. The hierarchical structure always remains the same. That sound familiar? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that this is somewhat different than our present situation, but what I really want to talk about is how British this novel is. And also Brave New World, because of course I've been thinking a lot about both of them. And in both of them, the class system is at the heart of whatever happens.
That's right.
In Brave New World, it's become biology. Mm-hmm. And here it's brutally enforced. In both worlds, and I don't know how this is related to British society exactly, but in both worlds, it's pleasure that is one of the controlling aspects. In Brave New World, there's the surfeit of pleasure, and that's used to control people. And here, it's a lack of pleasure or a very small amount of pleasure for the inner party. But just this idea that there has to be, that all societies are arranged in the same way is such a sort of British-centric view. I can't remember what year Brave New World was written, but it seems to me they must be coming out of the same era and historical experience in England.
A little earlier, yeah.
A little earlier, yeah.
But you're right about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyway.
You think this is not, this doesn't apply to American?
Well, it applies in broad outlines in a lot of ways, but the kind of society that is envisioned is not the same because it is more British. Trump wants to make money for himself, but he doesn't. There's no upper class that he's trying to protect. There's no upper class that. He only cares about himself. It seems to me. There are plenty of rich people. And they curry favor with him, but it's not quite the same kind of thing.
But that's
here.
not true. He's protecting every millionaire and everyone who's making money, and the people who are living in the slums are the ones that are being taken away. I see it as almost identical, and I think you can almost go to every society. I was thinking when Hava was talking about India and the caste system. I think you find it in almost every society. That it evens out that way, that there's always somebody who's in power and somebody in the middle and somebody at the bottom. And the people at the bottom are the ones who really suffer.
What we're dealing with right now is I think you're both right. You're right about the English part, and you're right in your point. What we're dealing with right now is something unique in a way. How would you describe what we're dealing with right now in terms of class, in terms of oligarchy? Yeah.
I'm not sure how to characterize it, but I think Trump's problem is that he really wanted to hobnob with the rich and famous of New York, and he was never accepted by them. So he has always been trying to get into their favor. He just was desperate to be part of it and just was never accepted for whatever reason. But
now he's hobnobbing with the rich of the world. He succeeded. He succeeded in doing that.
And also, Stephen Miller is really pulling the strings. I mean, he's the architect of all of this, and Trump's just the mouthpiece, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty grim. Yeah.
Also, the notion of the proletariat. Trump's MAGA supporters are by and large working class people. And it's really interesting to read, and it was soporific, I agree with you. This Goldstein section is like, I don't think I want to read this. Anyway, I did read it. And it seems to me that the MAGA, what he talks about is keeping them poor, but not so poor that they're going to fight back. That's exactly the characteristic of our lower middle classes, the working classes, is that they don't feel like they have what they should have, but they're not starving. They've got their trucks and they've got their politics, and they've got something to really hate, which is the elite. And you can see it. We've really created a situation where they have something to be really aggrieved about. And it can come down to a transgender male swimming on a swim team against, do I have that right? It's so hard. A transgender woman swimming on a swim team.
That's right.
With, his big broad shoulders and his big paddle feet. It doesn't seem fair. And yet we have rushed to champion. And I think Paul's class is fitting into this. Paul's class yesterday was about the degree to which the Democrats have sliced up every little thing. So you've got so it's not just LGB anymore. It's people saying you've got to have more respect for lesbians. You can't have trans women in prison with women because they get attacked. I mean, the whole place is so polarized over everybody's rights. So then you've got a unified MAGA base and a polarized, fractious bunch of Democrats who can't agree on our message, and you've got a problem.
Yeah, and the ruling group wants to keep that fraction going the way it is, and they're succeeding in that.
And so I think the nugget at the heart of that Goldstein book is kind of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful sort of thing. Now, what's this going to lead to? This conversation with what does O'Brien? What does he want Winston to do? What does he want him to do?
I felt like this was pure entrapment, so I think that's why we're feeling like maybe we haven't read the book as closely as you have, Peter, but that just felt like O'Brien was pretty sure Winston was a risk, because of his discontent, and that he was just being entrapped.
Well, yeah, but he clearly wants, what he recognizes in Winston is that Winston is bright. He's bright. He's articulate. He's an intellectual, and this guy can use intellectuals, you know, and Julia, you know, throw her out the trash, but Winston can help him continue to be the power that he is. Let's look at. I want to get to something here at the end. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa! I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh God. Okay, he says. Let's go back. There's a quote I wanted to point out to you. Back on page 137. Yeah, 137, yeah.
137.
Come on. Here we are. He says, history has stopped. Nothing exists except the endless present in which the party is always right. And it's you know, you if you erase history, all you've got is what you're seeing on the tube, you know, and it takes away your power. It's a devastating portrait of a totalitarian social structure. And the thing is that's so powerful about this book is you see the same things happening right now, and we haven't gotten to the end of it. I mean, what you think about what could Trump eventually do if he let him? What does he want in the long run? Trump, what does he want? What does Trump want? Well, he's got power.
He wants to be king. I mean, that's why we talk about no kings. He wants to have an arch, a huge arch. He wants to have a big statue of himself. I mean, he wants adulation.
Yes, that's right.
That's
right.
why he wants to be a king.
Wait till 2026 comes. Oh, no, when is it? 2028? 28. Wait till
He's
that.
not going to live that long.
You think he's not going to live that long? I hope not.
Do you think we're going to have another election?
Well, that's a good question.
We'll have another election in which the Republicans win, no matter how many votes the Democrats cast.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Alternative facts. That's right out of 1984. You know.
No, I was just going to say he started with alternative facts,
yeah, right.
and now he's erasing history. And before you know it, people who haven't. Somebody was saying to me that one of the reasons Trump won, people who were kids, who were 10 and 11 when he was first president, didn't live through all the stuff that we lived through. And so people who didn't know what he did the first time suckered in again by what he promised and didn't deliver.
Yeah, and you know, here we are. We're moving toward what, endless Trump? You know, 6 terms if he'd lived to be 100. I mean, it's and what can be done about it? What can be done about it? What can, I mean, you know, it's one thing to go out in the corner and wave placards and say we're against this. Does that do any good?
Peter,
Does it?
Peter, you said that what can be done about it. I just want to say that there's some inspiration if you look at what's happening in Minneapolis. And I think also there was an article in Monday's Inquirer about a man named Ian Austin, who was an Army Ranger, and he went purposely. He's went purposely to Minneapolis, reminding me of Patty, who went out there, and brave young men and women are standing up. They're getting killed, but they're standing up, and I think that's a sign of hope. Our hope lies in Minneapolis right now. We should all be saying, I'm a Minneapolis resident.
Yeah. Well, that you got a really good point there. That's right. But what if all the people who stand up are ruthlessly murdered?
All the people. Peter, you asked if our demonstrations make a difference. That's what this book keeps saying. If only we can get the people to stop making noise. If only we can get them down. And that's what we have to show that they're not. That the people are still raising their voices. Yeah.
So we keep raising our voices. And what if the people in the polls have been paid to, you know, fake this and fake that? What?
There's always somebody who is going to come forward.
And you know, and so somebody is shot. So then what?
Pitchfork revolution.
Pitchfork revolution.
Rhoda, did you want to say that? Say it.
It seems as if what we have here are the situations all over the country where people are standing up and saying, no,
Yes.
this is not how we want it.
Yes.
And they're going to continue to do it. And they're not all going to be shot. I mean, this is unrealistic to imagine that. We still have many people in Congress even who are now waking up and going to take different positions. And I think it's not all hunky-dory, but it is certainly not all, going into the sewer either.
Well,
Why do you want to see it that way?
Yeah, well.
I mean, there are parallels to the book, but there are also so many differences. I mean, our country is so large and so diverse that it's impossible to pigeonhole it so easily. It's scary, but it's not all lost.
Okay, so you're hanging on to hope. Well, I think you have to.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. I think we have to do that.
Well, it's a parallel to what has happened in the past, that we had the First World War, and then there was a change, and then we had the Second World War, and then there was a change against Hitler, and then we had socialism, communism, and there was a change. So that's what we have to hope for.
Yeah, and then comes the Putins.
Well,
Putin.
But
who
always
was doing extremely well.
But always there's been the change. History has shown that.
Uh-huh.
So don't throw in
So we're saying there is hope. Okay.
Well, if you believe in history.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's get back at the end here to
Maybe next week.
Okay. All right, but just keep thinking about it, because it's what's going on in the book is horrible. What's going on in the world's horrible, and let's think about it some more and come in next week with your reactions. Okay.
The film, I just went up to the front desk and asked Wanda to change the room. Because I put it on the forum, I think we might have a lot of people, because this book is so powerful and feels so contemporary and relevant. So the film is going to be shown Tuesday night before Peter's last class in Cathedral Hall. I'm going to put that on the forum and yada, yada, yada. In Cathedral Hall at 7 o'clock at night. And would you please tell me why, if I put a forum posting in with a subject that says Orwell film in Tuesday, 2/10 at 7 p.m., and everybody's saying, what time is the film? Maybe it got cut off. Okay, maybe it's me. Okay, it's there. It's there. Thank you.
Well, I want to say that thank you, Susan's been great. That film is worth seeing. It's worth seeing. Please come and see it.
That's why we're seeing it. That's why we're seeing it.
Yeah.
It's worth seeing.
All right. Thank you all.